Hey everyone, welcome back to Papa's Workshop. There are many different ways to be able to remove the popcorn from the ceiling. And today we're going to do a little bit different method. The method that we're going to be using is actually adding a coffer ceiling. Now the house that we're working on is over 60 years old, had the popcorn ceiling up there, and we want to be able to replace it with a coffer ceiling. Now there's many different designs that you can use when you do a coffer ceiling. But here's the thing, when you're dealing with a low ceiling, in this case an 8-foot ceiling, you can't do a lot of heavy framing and bulky type coffer ceilings. You need to keep it light, simple, and quite frankly, close to the ceiling. And that's what we're going to do today, is show you a very simple method to be able to do a coffer ceiling on a budget. The first step is to lay out the lines where the beams are going to go. The laser is the best tool to be able to do this. These lines have to be parallel to the walls and it has to be straight. I'm using the laser in a little bit of an unorthodox way because I'm using the room itself on the edge between the ceiling and the wall to be able to give me a perpendicular line. Normally, when you use a laser such as this, you want it perfectly level, and this has an auto level function. But in this case, I'm using this lock button to be able to override that. That way I can actually put this on the ceiling and it's perpendicular to that wall for my reference line. And then we can easily mark each end of where the beams will actually go. From there, we use the chalk line to actually pop the lines and establish where the beams will go onto the ceiling. Using this lock function works absolutely fantastic, better than I had hoped for actually. Normally you want the laser level to be level, but see what happens when it's tilted up? You get that flashing line. That means that it cannot self-level, that it's out of range, and you can't rely on this line. Well, the way to overcome that is to use that lock function. This lock function actually stops that, and you can actually pinpoint exactly where you need the laser to be positioned. And this gives you the opportunity to use the laser in a little bit different manner, but it works really well. The paneling that we're using to put on the ceiling is a prefinished bead board paneling, and we just cut it to fit in between where these beams are going to go and put it on the ceiling. Now this was done using the nails and glue. We used a heavy-duty glue to be able to secure this to the ceiling. Now again, in some cases the beams are put up first and then these panel boards are actually cut in between and make it for an exact fit. Well, this way we're putting the panel board up first and then the beams on top of it, and I think this turned out absolutely gorgeous. Let me know in the comment section below what you think on how this ceiling looks. You also notice just how crooked the wall is. Now this will have to be caulked in the end, but these walls had bows and dips in them. The next question is, what do we use for the beams? Well, it was MDF, which is medium density fiberboard. We took a 4x8 sheet and cut it down to get the most out of each sheet possible. In this case, these boards are roughly 5 1/4 inches wide. And yes, you did see a little bit of problem with this brand new tube of caulking, but we got it fixed. When it came time to put this next piece up, we always test fit to make sure if it was going to fit correctly. And remember, I said this wall is very crooked. When we put this one up there to put it in position, it did not match up with the previous board that we had because there was a huge bow in the wall just above the door itself. So the only thing to do is to be able to scribe that and then cut it so that it would fit. I was able to use a pencil to be able to do this scribe line because that actually ended up being the exact distance that I needed. So this was a simple matter of placing a pencil against a wall and then marking onto the MDF or beam exactly where it needed to be. And it was a good 1/8 inch, almost 3/16 inch of a bow in that wall. So we'll take it down, go cut this, sand it, make it nice and pretty, and we'll put it back up. Well, it's all cut, sanded and ready to go up now. And you can see our caulk gun is working much better. We're getting that glue put onto this board so that it will help hold it in position along with the nails that we're using. So with the glue on it, we grab the board and we head over to put it up there. Now the one thing you need to make sure of, we rotate it around so the part with the scribe on it is against the wall. Otherwise you still have a mess. So we're going to put it up in position and nail it. And it fits perfectly this time. This MDF board was actually primed and painted with 3 coats. That way it's finished when it goes on the ceiling. There'll be just a little bit of caulking and a little bit of touch up, but for the most part there is no serious painting that's left to be done. It's just like the pre-finished paneling that we put on the ceiling. So for the most part, this project will be almost completely done when we install these beams. Now these are being cut where it's a very tight tolerance, and there's really no room for error on this. I want the joint to be as tight as I possibly can, so I'm taking my time with the measurements. And yes, this is a butt joint. There's no need for any special joints here. And hopefully you'll notice too that we're putting in all of the long boards first, going left and right of the room. And that way, when we start cutting in the small pieces, those small pieces will be cut all the same length and will just drop in position. So the joint that you would see is all going to line up and it'll be very consistent. And quite frankly, it'll be part of the design feature itself. I hope you can see that this is really a very easy project to be able to do, and I think the results really add an awful lot to the room and the look and feel of how this entire home changes by adding this coffer ceiling. And quite frankly, even cutting around the light and the air conditioner vent was not that big of a deal. Just take your time, do your measurements, and it will go very smoothly. I'm also sure that somebody is going to ask about the vent, because that is going to be right where the beam is. Unfortunately, this is a 2-story house, and that vent ran right in line with the ceiling joist itself, so we were not able to move it. We always test fit, and that's one of the key important things to make sure that this goes smooth. Before you put the glue on it, test fit, make sure that it fits exactly the way you want it to. And with that being said, it's time to add the glue and install it permanently. This gives you a close-up of what the joint actually looks like, and that's about as perfect as you can get. A little bit of caulking for the nail holes, and that will take care of it. When putting this beam up, we didn't want to use the chalk line, because the chalk line would get that coarse chalk all over that finished bead board, and we didn't want to go through the cleaning. But you can use the laser again as my line, and you don't have to use the chalk line. Just put the laser up where it's in exact position on each end with our marks, and then you can literally place the beam right up there onto the ceiling using the laser beam itself as a guideline. And that actually is quicker than using a chalk line, and it's just as accurate, and there's no mess to clean up. I turned the camera around so you could see the other side of this beam in relationship to the laser, and you can see how that laser beam is right next to that beam. That gives you the perfect tool to be able to align that beam so it's nice and straight. An alternative is to set the laser beam in place and then use a pencil and mark where your beams are going to be placed. Either way works just fine. It's just a matter of personal preference. Me personally, I like using the laser and putting the beams up there and use that as my alignment tool. In the end though, this is a huge, huge improvement over having the old popcorn ceiling. This modernizes the whole house, and this project, although not finished, is well underway, and I wanted to be able to show this to you, and I'll come back and do an update when this is completely finished. I absolutely love how this is turning out. And if you enjoyed this video, by all means, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I will be doing the follow-up when this project is completely done, but I couldn't wait to share the results so far. So for now, bye-bye. See you real soon.